lay like you'd sleep. Don't lay like you're in a coffin. You know, lay on your side, stomach, however you're going to be comfortable. I know it's tough to get a full simulation here of how you'll sleep, but you know, you want to get as close to possible as you can. So once we kind of figure a comfort level that works, we can show you the different types of beds there are, because there's different beds for everybody. There's different styles, springs, foam beds. All that stuff can be very confusing. So you know, we can help narrow down and eliminate a lot of that confusion, because there's lots of myths out there about certain types of beds, like I need a firm bed, I need a hard mattress, foam, this foam's hot, this and that, and a lot of that stuff's not true necessarily. So if you'd like to stick around and get a full presentation from myself or one of my associates, Roland or Ray down there, we'd be happy to show you a few options. There's really no commitment to do anything tonight, but I do have a $50 gift card just for coming down. So any purchase over $100, it could be a mattress, it could be a eucalyptus organic mattress protector, it'd be anything we have, we could give you a $50 gift card just for coming down. So
what are some of the myths of like hard beds?
Well, with hard beds specifically, you know, people think that they need a hard bed for support, but the truth is your back is not a flat board. I mean, your back's going to have some curvature to it. So if there's nothing filling up your lower back, then your back's going to actually strain to remain in that position. So that could cause lower back pain specifically. So, but besides that, because there's some cases where it will work if you're a back sleeper, but your body's never going to fully get as comfortable as it needs to get the 5 stages of sleep, you know, the REM sleep, and you know, that's when your body recovers. And so if you're constantly tossing and turning to get comfortable, you're never going to achieve that. You may sleep, but that's when you're waking up at 2, waking up at 3, waking up at 4. You're just, because your body's restless and it's not comfortable. So, you know, firm beds I wouldn't say are comfortable. So you can get something that's firm and comfortable, or excuse me, that's firm and supportive, but the better ones will always have some comfort on top, you know, just to make it like a, you know, just so your body relaxes throughout the night. So that's the main thing.
What about pillow tops?
Well, pillow tops can be good in some cases, sometimes not. If you get a good quality pillow top, which contains good material, which isn't going to shift or fall apart on you, then yeah, there are some circumstances where that'll work. They're certainly not as popular as they were, I'd say, 6 or 7 years ago. For a lot of what you mentioned, that roll together happens more so with something that has a lot of foam on top of it. Unfortunately, with the cost increases of foam and springs over the last year, just like anything in the economy, a lot of the basic pillow tops have gone down in quality as far as the you know, the density and the type of foam they use. So you're going to have a lot more of that issue if you do something that's, you know, not built correctly. So we can help you, you know, differentiate that too. So.
Okay, what about like a lot of times I always hear about like spring count and things like that. What does that mean?
Well, spring count's an easy thing to look at when you're trying to compare a bed, because you look at, you know, how fast a computer is when you buy it. You look at you know, how much voltage this car has, how many horsepower this car has. So that's an easy thing to focus on, is coil count, but it's really not the number of coils as much as it is the type of coil and how it's built. And some people will be better off on a higher coil count, some won't. There's even, I mean, Tempur-Pedic beds you see advertised, which is what I use, there's no coils at all in that. So, you know, they're completely eliminating that. And so, you know, it's not always vital to the support, but it certainly can be important.
I have all these questions, so
That's awesome.
I hope you guys don't mind me hogging
This is easier for me to answer your question than
okay.
to give a presentation like you.
So like the other thing that, what's like the lifespan of a bed, and what does that mean? Like, okay, they have a warranty, like, because that's one of the things that people are like, well, I have a 20-year mattress.
Warranties are a complete, you know, scam by the mattress industry, unfortunately. There's up until recently, they had 20, 25-year warranties. There's really no truth to that. It's really just a selling tactic, unfortunately, they use. They have been pressured a lot by, you know, the salespeople and others to lower their warranty back down to 10 years. So all these beds are now have 10-year warranties, which is a more realistic expectation of your bed. In fact, they say on average 8 years or so you should replace it. But it could be longer or less than that. You know, it all depends on the quality bed you get.
So like, what would you say is like a good time frame for a bed?
I'd say 8 years. You know, or more just if you feel like you're not getting the sleep you used to. You know, if you're waking up with pain that goes away throughout the day, you know, or like in your lower back, shoulder, hip, that could be a sign that the spring is pushing against you and causing pressure. That's a good sign to replace it. If you're tossing and turning. Another thing you mentioned, going to sleep at 10 and being actually in bed and ready. One problem we have if your bed's not comfortable is it's going to take an extra hour to fall asleep, because your body is not getting in that stage 1 sleep is when you start to kind of nod off because your bed's not comfortable. So you're losing an hour right there. Then you're waking up throughout the night consistently, and then you're losing all that, you know, all that stage 4 and 5 sleep, which is when you recover, you know, which is when your body heals itself.
So what's the difference between like a Sleep Number bed or Tempur-Pedic bed and a coiled bed?
Okay, well, that's a broad question, but Sleep Number, simply put, is an air mattress, and so I never had a lot of success with those. I actually sold them at Sleep Train for a number of years, but they pulled all their beds out of the retailers and exclusively sell them, so they can kind of give their own story as to how they work. They had a lot of problems with mold developing in the actual product itself because you have a lot of condensation with air and rubber in there. So it's not an ideal way to design a bed. I mean, there's some cases where it'll work good. I'm sure there's people that are happy with it, but it never really panned out that well, at least in our industry. So, but that's simply put. So, and then you have foam beds like Tempur-Pedic, which is what I use. And so what they've done is they've eliminated that spring, which does cause the pressure against your body. And they replaced it with a foam that was designed by NASA, which it completely adapts and conforms to your body better than any type of foam does. So, you lay on your side, you get that support and comfort right on your hip, same with your shoulder. And you go on your back and the bed levels out. In fact, there's even another type of bed you can get which can raise the feet and head. In fact, sleeping just kind of like that, like you laying in a recliner, is the ideal way to sleep just for your lower back, because it takes all the weight of your legs, lifts it up, lifts your head up slightly, you can breathe better. Your lower back's not bothering you in the morning. So that's actually the ideal way to sleep, is on something like that. But and that's another big thing that they're doing now, is that adjustable bed thing.
Have you seen like with like sleep apnea? Like, have you seen like what kind of impact does like mattresses have on sleep apnea?
Yeah, sleep apnea. One of the hugest things, you got to wear that big machine, which that's going to be hard to sleep in regardless. But just having your head up. A lot of people come in who have sleep apnea and they want something to put on their bed. They want a special pillow to lift their head up. They want some wedge to put under their mattress, which can work, but it really doesn't. It's not that effective over 8 hours. So you can actually get a base which just the head goes up. It's not that expensive, and it just kind of lifts you a little bit. That's going to help open the airwaves up for breathability. And a lot of people, a lot of times, people with sleep apnea have issues breathing, obviously. So that helps with that, definitely.
Anybody else have any questions?
Let me know, please.
I can keep going.
So is the foam recyclable, and how long does it last?
There is a recycling facility that recycles the steel and some of the foam. Typically, depending on the density of the foam, will depend on how long it lasts. I mean, you look at a bed like here's an average mattress. The foam density is maybe 1 to 2 pounds, which means a cubic foot of it weighs about 1 to 2 pounds. You go to Tempur-Pedic, and one of the reasons why they cost more is you're using 5 to 7 pound density, which is stronger than anything that is in any mattress, including some of these higher end ones we have. So that's going to recover the longest. In fact, you're always going to have that flat look on those beds for longer than anything, because the foam's so dense. And then the problem with some of these pillow tops, you have that good showroom feel, where you lay on it, it feels really good for 5 minutes, but just unfortunately 2 or 3 years, it's gotten too soft. It's just not working.
Now, what about outgassing and gassing from like the Tempur-Pedic type?
Yeah,
mattresses?
so there is that issue. All their product is water-based, so you're not going to have toxins added to it specifically, but there is a odor to that product when it, like a brand new bed smell. So that does take a little bit longer to go away than your average mattress. So if that bothers some people, there's definitely good alternatives to that. In fact, our heirloom collection, which is makes beds from the mid-range up to completely handcrafted with all organic, natural material. So that would be what we consider the one step above Tempur-Pedic. So because Tempur-Pedic does have that downfall of being a foam bed, it's not going to be the healthiest bed to sleep on if you break it down that way. I don't think it's unhealthy, but you can certainly get something which is built completely natural and with all good material if you want. So it's just not always in the price range of everybody, because they are going to be more expensive, but they're definitely options here for you.
How long does the gassing thing last?
I fill this whole showroom with beds, and usually within a day or two it's gone. And it's just like any new upholstered product, it's going to have that issue, but it's typically not going to be something that's dangerous, especially nothing that's U.S. made. The only beds that really I question are the ones that they import, overseas in containers. Those are come in boxes, and they have a really pungent smell too. And those are ones I would deem that would probably be toxic most likely. But anything U.S. made has a lot of regulations against it, to avoid any kind of chemicals being added to them. So I don't know the full way they construct Tempur-Pedic foam, like an engineer would, but I know that it is a water-based compound they use to make it. So from what they've told us, it shouldn't be toxic at all. So
if you bought one now, next week you should.
Oh yeah.
And then you touched on the heat versus, does it cause you to have
That is the one thing that they get a lot of problems with, and certainly the original ones did, but the new product they have, they've come a long way with the technology they use. A lot of it is in the cover that's over the foam. And so I can show you when we go down there, but it almost releases like a cool air against you when you lay down. Plus there's another brand by Serta called iComfort, which actually infuses a gel, which is similar to what you'd have in like a Dr. Schultz shoe almost. It's not the same thing, but it's infused with the memory foam too. Mentioned sleep temperature being 70 degrees, so it keeps you at that optimal sleep temperature. And it's actually 89 degrees is what your body wants to be at, so that's combining 98, your normal temperature, with that 70. So that's what that foam actually gets your body temperature at. And so there's beds that contain that too. So they've come a long way with that. That's definitely not a problem anymore, I can guarantee that.
How important is the foundation?
If it's a old foundation, you should replace it, but it's not vital to how the bed's going to feel. You know, some of these beds just need a hard surface. They don't need like a spring anymore. You know, like most of these beds, if you look down here at the frames we have, you know, they're going to be just on boards or slats, and that's usually enough support for it. So yeah, the box springs are definitely not the same. I mean, they're most of these beds are going to use the same kind of box spring. So.
What about, I guess my only last question would be about like the flame retardants and stuff like that. What do you know about that?
Flame retardants typically they're never going to be a spray or chemical. They're always a natural added thing to the bed which will smolder a flame. A lot of times mattresses use wool as their fire retardant. And so that would pass a fire test. It doesn't need to be fireproof. It just needs, if you put a flame on it, it needs to smolder out. It can't spread throughout the bed. So that's how they test for fire retardants. They're not adding a spray over the bed to dull the flame out. So that gets kind of, there's some cases where you're going to have, you know, questionable material added, you know, to a bed, but it's typically in just cheaper mattresses. When you go to something nicer like Heirloom, they use a silken wool to smolder the flame, so it's all natural. And then Tempur-Pedic's cover, just, you know, that smolders the flame naturally. So none of those will be anything that's to worry about for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Any other questions?
Go for it. About flipping and rotating.
Everything's non-flip now, so just rotate it. You know, it's always important to rotate it. I mean, no matter what bed you get, it's always going to change slightly. A lot of things we hear is someone comes in and goes, well, the middle of my bed's fine where I don't sleep, but right where I sleep every night, it's a lot softer. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, because the body, your body weight's been in that part the entire time. You haven't spun the bed, you haven't rotated. So no matter how well the bed is built, it is going to soften up in areas where you use it more. So to avoid that, you do want to rotate it every time.
How often would you rotate your bed?
I mean, you should do it at least at first once a month for 6 months, and then try to do it at least 3 or 4 times a year if you can.
So rotate.
Just spin it around.
Circular,
Yeah, don't need to
no
flip it
flipping
over.
anymore.
No, all those are gone. Yeah. So.
And then how heavy is it? The
Well,
foam at 5 pounds
some are heavier than others. I mean, it's rarely they're more than 100 pounds, unless you do maybe a big king. I mean, I have a bed down here. It's probably 200 pounds, but I mean, usually that's a sign of a better bed when they're heavy. But typically, it's not going to be too tough to do. But we actually have a service where we can send people out to help you rotate if you need. So.
Even Tempur-Pedic mattresses need to be
Yeah,
spun?
you got Tempur-Pedic for me.
Yeah.
So just spin it around. I mean, if you're noticing that the part you use more is softer and the other part isn't, just spin it around. But I mean, with those beds too, almost like a nice pair of shoes. Like they just take shape of your body, and it's like they almost get better with time. I don't know if you noticed that, but I certainly noticed that with mine. Is mine's gotten even better as I've used it over time, as opposed to getting worse, like a lot of mattresses do. So, would you agree with that? That probably, yeah. I'd say so.
Well, it's my favorite mattress.
That's good.
Sleep better on it than
Yeah, she has the same mattress I do, so helped out a couple of that. Probably about a year ago, was it?
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you guys want to